Hello, Manic.mercurian here with a birth chart reading. This one is for March 12th, 1998 at 5:47 p.m. in Houston, Texas. A happy belated birthday. I'd be happy to read this for you. And for anyone else that would like a birth chart reading, feel free to email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. I am currently charging $20 for a birth chart reading such as this one, so if that interests you, feel free to do that. If you'd like more information, you can go to my channel page. There is a video that will autoplay and it will kind of give you all the information you need to know about the types of readings I offer, how to get one, the rates, etc. So yeah, let's take a look at this. So you have Sun in Pisces, Moon in Virgo, Pisces rising. So a lot is kind of obviously clustered around the Pisces Virgo axis. I think that's where my attention kind of goes to first with both the luminaries and the rising there. And this also indicates that you were born just before a full moon. So the full moon was basically, already happening at your time of birth. It's not exact, so the moon is not exactly opposing the sun, but it's very close. It's only 5 degrees away, or 7 degrees away if I can count. So, okay, so being born during a Virgo full moon, this means that there's a lot of dynamism, there's a lot of multifacetedness in your chart. One reason is just because the sun and the moon are opposing, and it's so timely because I just did a video on harsh aspects, especially between the luminaries in the birth chart, so this definitely applies for you. The moon and the sun are kind of at odds in your chart. They're both representing very different energies and themes, and there are some traits that connect the two, but first I'll focus on the differences. So having that multifacetedness in yourself, that can be very difficult. So it's almost like there's these two sides of your personality that are very different. There's the Pisces sun side and then the Virgo moon side. So part of you is very more creative and intuitive, more about, kind of feelings. You're probably a very deep feeler. Virgo can be a deep feeler as well. I don't think everyone recognizes that as much as maybe they could, but Virgo is sensitive too, but the Virgo full moon is more analytical as well. And especially having your moon there, which represents your emotion, your emotional core, kind of the interior of the personality. Having it in Virgo, this Mercury ruled sign, means that you're very analytical, especially over your emotions. So when you feel something, you kind of automatically dissociate a little bit, just enough to observe it. And the reason why you want to observe your own feelings and your own, I don't know, your own habits or your own reactions to things is because, well, for one, you're a very sensitive person. Pisces is a sensitive sign. Virgo is too. You are very sensitive, so you want to kind of observe yourself in order to adapt. Very, that's another key point here. You're very adaptable. Pisces and Virgo are both very adaptable signs, and they're both very adaptable in totally different ways. So that's very powerful that you have both of them. You have the emotional fluidity. I don't know if that's a word, but the ability to be kind of fluid. Like Pisces, like the fish. You can kind of melt into things. You can melt into your surroundings. You can pick up many different vibes off of other people and glean a lot of information from that. So you have that Piscean side of emotional adaptability and intuition. But you also have the Virgoan side of adaptability of being more analytical, logical with your surroundings in a more physical way. So physical observations of what's happening, getting little tidbits of information there. And this also, having Virgo full moon also indicates that you have the capacity for containing a lot of knowledge. You can accumulate a lot of information. Both of Pisces and Virgo have to do with integration and both with learning as well. Learning and integration kind of go hand in hand. So they're both processing information, experiences, emotions, etc. They're both kind of just processing everything. So that's why there are some similarities between Pisces and Virgo because the axis focuses on learning, adaptability, it's more about kind of allowing your own psyche or ego to be a little bit unstructured so you can adapt and mold according to what you're experiencing. And so you can also integrate what you're experiencing. So that's a lot of what your life themes have to do with is just being adaptable, going with the flow, learning to, I don't know, adapt with your surroundings, but also to integrate basically. You have a lot of information, a lot of experiences to integrate. Um, let's see here. What else? Yeah, and then just going back to having the Virgo full moon, it's like where many people are emotional deep down, you are actually very logical. And this may be a little bit surprising for a Pisces sun. You're actually much more aware of your emotions in a kind of logical or a kind of rational, analytical sense than most Pisces um, sun people would be. Another way of putting it would be, you have that ability to be detached and analytical more than, maybe the typical Pisces would. So, and again, you're on both sides here. So you do kind of fully immerse yourself and feel the feeling of what's happening. You experience things emotionally that way, but you can also kind of detach and be analytical. And having these two very different sides of your personality on the one hand is very difficult because it's a lot to manage. It's a lot to manage not only because they're very different, but also because there's many different sides within each personality. Pisces and Virgo are both kind of complex signs. They're both adaptable and malleable, and therefore have many different, they have a wide range of possibilities that they have, for themselves and for their lives. So, especially combining both of those energies within yourself, it means you have a very, very wide range of what you can do, what you're capable of, and where your life can take you. Um, and there's a lot of creativity here as well. If you if you can just think about, combining the superior logical capacity of the Virgo moon, and then also combining that with the creativity, the inspiration, the ability to dream big of the Pisces sun, that is very powerful. There's a lot of musicians, actors, producers that have sun in Pisces, moon in Virgo, or vice versa, full moon on that axis. So yeah, you would strike me as a very intelligent person, very creative person, someone who um, okay, this brings me to another point. So, part of why, having placements like this makes such great, producers, or I think Michael Jackson has his sun and moon around this axis, and so does Tom Ford, who's one of my personal favorite producers of, films. Um, but part of why this is so great for occupations like this is because, having the Pisces side of your personality, Pisces likes to get fully lost in fantasy, in anything kind of differing from reality. So escapism and fantasy and all that. But Virgo Moon, or Virgo Moon in your case, but Virgo in general, is so detail oriented. And so combining the two, applying a lot of, detail orientedness and, things that you could only really notice from being analytical. So, for instance, being like a producer, you could imagine this whole world. I don't know a lot about movies. I don't know if this is the producer's role or what have you. But my point still remains the same, that if you can imagine this whole kind of world through this Pisces vision, this whole grand scheme of this story that you want to tell, or this world that you want to imagine, but then also apply this Virgo perspective, this Virgo ability to get every detail right, that's really powerful. You can be really creative. So yeah, I think you could be an excellent like storyteller, or I don't know, do something with design or art, something again where you can combine the fantasy with also the detail orientedness, because that's something that you're an expert at. And really, you could apply that to many different fields. It doesn't have to be super artsy or creative. It could be, I don't know, it could be maybe almost anything. But yeah, so that's a very interesting pairing there. Maybe very difficult for you at times. I think you would have times. I have to be specific because everyone has challenges in their life, but you especially would have times where you feel um, mentally out of balance. Pisces and Virgo both deal with themes of mental health, physical health, but also especially mental and emotional health, I think. So I think, in short, you can feel very crazy at times, maybe more than the average person. Because again, you have so much to handle. There's such a wide range of feelings and thoughts that you process, but you are excellent at processing all that. And I would say you're a late bloomer as well, having so much mutable energy in your chart. So all the Pisces and Virgo, these are energies that take time to develop because of that wide range, that openness that they have to the world, and that adaptability that they have. it takes a long time for them to get to know themselves, to get to know their world. So, so yeah, if you don't have this all down right away, you will naturally step into it, and you will probably continue growing for the rest of your life as well. Because again, you're always changing and adapting, learning, growing. So, so yeah, you may be a little bit of late bloomer, but that's what makes you so special or so so strong. Or there's some kind of strength there, I think, in continuing to learn and grow and adapt. Okay. So something else that I wanted to talk about though that I've been neglecting a little bit is, you have a lot, of course, in Pisces and Virgo, but the third area I would say is the main focus, or the next area that I would focus on after Pisces and Virgo would be Aries, because you do have Mars, Mercury, and Saturn all in Aries. More planets there than any other sign. Except you technically have Uranus, Neptune, and Venus in Aquarius. But especially since you have two personal planets in Aries, you have a big chunk of your personality there. And this is really interesting. So so having Mercury conjunct Mars in Aries, Mercury is of course kind of your how you think, how you communicate, and your intellectual capacity. It's especially important because Mercury rules over your moon. In this case, like I said, your emotional capacity is kind of governed by your mind, if that makes sense. You're mentally aware of your emotions. And the way you think and communicate is, signified by Mercury in Aries. Mercury is also conjunct Mars, which rules over Aries. So this would suggest you think and communicate in a very quick way. So you're a very quick learner. I think you already have a capacity to learn very quickly, and from all that adaptability from the Pisces and Virgo. Both Pisces and Virgo are very observant, and I don't know, they pick up on so many different vibes and so many pieces of little information that they can be very quick learners. But especially with Mercury and Aries, you'd be very, very quick to reach conclusions, and quick to articulate them, very well, very confidently, I think. And I think in general, people with Mercury and Aries are kind of confident in they're confident in their intellectual abilities, whether that they should be or not. In your case, I think you have reason to be, because you are very observant. You do process a great amount of detailed information. Um, so yeah, you probably are. I would say, judging off your chart, you'd be maybe very confident in your own thinking capacity, but probably rightfully so. So yeah, you do have that ability to think quickly, reach conclusions quickly, or access information very quickly, and to articulate it confidently as well, or maybe to speak quickly. Um, Especially with Moon in a mercurial sign, you probably, and then Mercury in Aries, you probably do think very quickly and maybe speak very quickly. Your mannerisms may be kind of fast as well. But most of all, it's a strength. I think it complements your other placements very well, because naturally you do take your time to process things. So being a little bit quick to access information, to analyze, and to speak on those things, I think is an advantage with your chart. I think it's mostly a good thing. But you can maybe speak a little bit quickly at times. Now, there's a very different placement, especially early in life, a different set of themes here, and that would be Saturn in Aries. So Saturn in Aries. Um, so this is a sub-generational placement. So anyone born within, I would say, a year on either side from you also has Saturn in Aries. So a lot of this will apply to them. However, so this would show that you are very hard on yourself. And this is also strengthened by these other, or it's strengthened, or it's echoed by these other placements in your chart as well. Virgo Moon, very hard on themselves, especially emotionally. You probably, keep a lot of things private to yourself, and you have high standards for yourself. Pisces Sun can be, kind of hard on themselves. But then you've also got Saturn in Aries, so especially at a young age, this can be, I don't want to say crippling, but it can be very difficult at times, that you feel like you have a weight on yourself. You feel like, I don't know, like you're not good enough. You can have, kind of like lower self-esteem, or just feel, I don't know, like you doubt yourself or something like that, like you have insecurities. And of course everyone has insecurities, But especially for you, and especially at a young age, you have this really heavy kind of weight on yourself. Now, the good thing is, with Saturn, it is, whatever, wherever Saturn is in our chart, it is very difficult at first. It takes time for us to grow and learn in that area. But over time, ideally, we will become an expert in that area. So for you specifically, yes, you may feel this weight on yourself and doubt yourself or feel like you're not good enough in early life, but the reason for that is just because you have very high standards for yourself, and over time you will learn to meet your own standards, to live up to the expectations that ultimately you set upon yourself. Um, and especially once you get into your late 20s, going into your 30s, by then you'll be, much better at this than earlier in life. And the cool thing is that this is actually a very rewarding placement later in life. So later in life, once you kind of have all this figured out, then you'll have an extremely healthy, sense of identity, esteem, sense of self-worth, and extreme extremely healthy relationship with yourself and trust in your own abilities, pretty much. Because again, you'll have learned by then to kind of reach your own expectations, to live up to your own expectations, if that makes sense. Um, let's see. So yeah, really, with all three of these main areas, I would think that yeah, it's really interesting because on the one hand, you learn very quickly. You are a sponge. You just soak up information. You soak up, attitudes and feelings. And then with that Mercury conjunct Mars and Aries, you can access so much information very quickly. You have an ability to figure a lot out, which is really impressive. On the other hand, though, I think it takes time for you to adjust to this life, and it takes time for all of us. But maybe especially for you, it can be very challenging just to, well, I think, even just to sit with the information that you've gained, acquiring all this information, figuring everything out, is, obviously impressive and useful, but I think it can also be difficult. It means that you may uncover, things that are hard to accept. And maybe I think that's also part of why, even though you do evolve very quickly and adapt very quickly, it also takes you a long time to kind of stabilize in this life, because you have to ingest or um, sit with all of what you've uncovered, all of your experiences and the information that you find. And again, there's going to be a wide array of information and experiences that you have because you're so open, because you're so adaptable, because you're so curious, maybe, about different possibilities here. So you're meant to experience a wide range, and that's very common for Pisces Sun, especially Pisces Rising. But yeah, again, combining that with these other placements in your chart, I definitely see that um, as a possibility here. Um, okay, and then I was looking to see where is the nodal axis, because that would also indicate whether you're kind of a late bloomer or how that kind of goes. So for you, South Node is at 10 degrees Pisces. So it's right by your Jupiter, which is also your chart ruler, and it's pretty close to your Sun. But then the Moon is close to your North Node. So okay, this is very interesting. This means that okay. This means you were actually born very close to a full moon eclipse. I don't know if you know that already. I don't know if it was exact or if it was visible where you were born. Well, I know it wasn't exact. It wasn't a total full moon lunar eclipse. But I do know um, that there was an eclipse, yeah, full moon eclipse, probably a partial full moon eclipse, on the day that you were born. So, okay, and I should have seen this sooner. So everything I said still applies. That's fine. But this this increases the possibility that your fate or your destiny or your life in general is intertwined with the fate of kind of the world. So, like Donald Trump has this, for instance. So So you actually have a possibility of affecting many people other than yourself. So maybe your entire community or state or country. I don't know how far you want to go with that. And really, of course, you have your own free will. You can choose not to like lead a really public life or anything like that. This also indicates a lot about your kind of growth, your evolution in this life. You would have kind of spurts of growth in a sort of dramatic way. And this would especially apply whenever the eclipse cycle lines up with your sun and moon. So at the age of, let's see here, at the age of 9, and then 18, and then 27, and then so on, it just repeats every 9 years when the nodal axis lines up with your nodal axis and the eclipses occur um, in that range in Pisces and Virgo, right around where the full moon eclipse occurred when you were born, you'd experience phases of accelerated growth, basically. Um, let's see here. Yeah, and right now you're in your like early to mid 20s, so you had a very large one when you were right around the age of 18, especially because that's when we experience our first nodal return. Now, we all go through this, but this is especially dramatic for you because it lines up with your sun and moon. A lot of us, most people don't have the nodal axis lining up with the sun and moon. I don't know if you understand all of that kind of astrological jargon that I'm talking about, but even if you don't, that's okay. Basically, the meaning of it is that, you'd have very accelerated growth. And this also shows that, age 9 would be very difficult for you. Age 18 would be much easier, having all that growth, really figuring things out, and evolving in a very rapid pace. And it would be so dramatic that things would almost kind of feel like a movie. Things would feel surreal. There'd be things just happening that seem so unlikely. Your life turning in very unpredictable or dramatic ways, if that makes sense. And the same would occur in those cycles. So age 27 would be another difficult one where, it's almost like every 9 years you get kind of off track, off your, life, what you're meant to do in this life, or the way you kind of are, whatever your soul is kind of drawn to. You would get kind of off track from all that. Things would kind of go wrong. You'd feel out of place. And then another 9 years, you would suddenly, everything would kind of line up and you'd start learning a lot, figuring things out, evolving very quickly. And then 9 years again, you'd go kind of off track again, more so. And eventually, you will stabilize, so this will become less dramatic as you mature in age, as you get into these later stages in your lifetime. But still, you have that ability to evolve very quickly. And I think too, since you are so adaptable, you learn very quickly. You will learn naturally how, and especially with this information too, if you can apply it here, you will learn naturally how to minimize the discomfort and dysfunction of the nodal opposition. So again, age 9, 27, every 18 years. You can minimize the effects of that more hard transit and maximize on the experience of the nodal returns that you experience at age 18, 36, and so on every 18 years. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have more questions about that, we can continue corresponding. I'd be happy to give more information on that in particular or on anything else. But yeah, I'm definitely not done yet here. So yeah, very interesting being born just before a full moon eclipse. Very interesting. Okay. So I'll cut this out too. Okay, very interesting. And let's um let's jump around a little bit here. So let's go to more of like your childhood. So going to like your childhood and upbringing, since I'm kind of covering your like growth or maturity anyway, or evolution. So having sun and moon opposing, especially a full moon, and I think especially having them near the nose, being born on an eclipse. Growing up, if both your parents were involved in in raising you, they would have very different attitudes. They'd be very different from one another. So there would be a lot of contrast within your home growing up. This would be very confusing. You wouldn't know what is expected of you, and it would cause almost kind of a schism within you. The the more positive side of this is that it's what eventually kind of lends itself to create the dynamism that is within you. It leads you to being more adaptable and open-minded, more open in general to different experiences, different opinions or points of view. Um, yeah, so it makes you more dynamic, more open. But yeah, it comes from this contrast that was in the environment when you were growing up. And I've seen charts of people that were born with this that had just one parent raise them, but still, I would say there is probably a very differing attitudes or styles between each parent, so that may have been what caused the separation. And even if it was just one parent in the house, there may have still been a lot of themes of I don't know, like volatility or very different, like maybe something was expected very differently of you at different times, if that makes sense. So there's like this kind of up and down or um, back and forth nature of the environment growing up. You have Gemini IC. So let's see here. And I still need to jump back to the notes. I'm not done with those yet here. But Gemini IC, I've heard it's very common that you probably had a very vivid imagination growing up. I think you actually had an extremely vivid imagination. With you have a lot of Pisces strong placements. Your ascendant there, your sun. You also have the chart ruler Jupiter is in Pisces, and you have the South Node. So Pisces is really an even stronger place for you than I initially noticed. Um, so especially with South Node there, and then with the IC and Gemini, you had a very vivid imagination as a child. So you may have had imaginary friends, or you may have talked to yourself a lot because you would have experienced times where you felt alone, and having such a vivid imagination, you would almost kind of invent friends for yourself. So having IC and Gemini, it's very common to have imaginary friends or to kind of talk to yourself. And what's interesting is that as you kind of mature and develop, your Gemini IC would sort of turn into the Sagittarius midheaven. So the IC signifies your kind of childhood upbringing. So that's starting out from Gemini. So that's where you get this kind of vivid imagination and this talking to yourself. I'm not sure why that's associated with Gemini IC, but it's a common pattern. But as you mature, you'll kind of develop this Sagittarius midheaven, which is more about your career, your reputation, who you are, in public and such. And in Sagittarius, it's actually very charismatic. And I think something about having that vivid imagination and talking to yourself at a young age, it's almost like it truly does. It's somehow connected to you actually becoming a very, maybe eloquent speaker or a very kind of charismatic personality once you're more kind of in adulthood, more having your own career, public image, etc. Um, and yeah, and just more on a general level, Sagittarius midheaven is, I think, one of the most ideal midheavens to have, really, because, again, you have a wide range of possibilities. Sagittarius midheaven likes to travel, likes to be kind of out of its home, out of its element, experiencing new things. So this would show that you may be suitable for a job where you have to travel very far or work with people from different cultures or socioeconomic backgrounds, different customs, people of different kind of worlds, if that makes sense, or maybe different people of different faiths or ideologies, different perspectives or opinions, that type of thing. That ability to experience that contrast within your environment and with other people, that's kind of what your midheaven is suggesting you would truly embrace in your career and public image, if that makes sense. And you would do so with a kind of openness, versatility, and charisma about you. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, either traveling or maybe working with people who are traveling, something of that nature. And I think if we kind of, I'm having fun kind of just rambling and getting sidetracked in your chart here. So just kind of going with that, going back to how I was saying that you would be really skilled with anything combining your intuition and imagination and creativity, combining that with your detail orientedness. You could also combine those things with that propensity for travel or for, again, working with people of different attitudes or backgrounds or such. Um, I think that would be kind of the most ideal position for you if we're talking about your career or job, something where you can combine those. And I don't even know what that would be. That sounds like a very specific niche, and really, you could like, lean toward one of those themes as well. You don't have to have all of that, really. But yeah, something, I don't know, working with different people, designing things, imagining things. I'm almost thinking like um, I forget what it's called, but I'm totally spacing what it's called, but where you book hotels for people, or you design like their vacations or whatever. That almost seems kind of perfect because you could use the imagination and the fantasy of like a getaway, but also the detail orientedness of having to figure a lot of mundane kind of details out, and then also combining that with dealing from people from different areas who are traveling very far. That would be kind of the most ideal thing. And I'm not saying you have to do that job that I can't remember the name of, but that's just the best example I can think of um, that incorporates all of those elements. So it could be something else that maybe I'm not thinking of, or dealing with, making a movie where you have to bring people from different areas or coordinate something like that. I don't know. Something of that nature. Hopefully you kind of get what I'm saying by now, I'm sure. Let's see what else here. You also have Pluto near the midheaven, so you may have this kind of well, first of all, I want to preface this by saying that you have having so much of your personality around the Pisces Virgo axis would make you kind of unassuming. You seem maybe shy or timid, and it's interesting because this axis seems, delicate, but at the same time, you're very resilient. You go through a lot of stuff, and I don't know if everyone realizes that about you, but even if you seem maybe slightly dainty at times, really you're not at all. You're extremely resilient. You can handle a lot more. The signs on this axis have very high endurance. So this kind of like daintiness is really, not accurate at all. It's or people maybe perceive it inaccurately, I think. So I wanted to say that first, that you have this kind of unassuming way about you, maybe seeming shy. However, at the same time, having your midheaven close to the Pluto indicates that your public image, you're seen as being very strong, powerful, mysterious. People, see you and they think that you've got some kind of scheme, or you've got, I don't know, some kind of power that they can't quite totally see, but that they feel with you or something. And it also shows that you have this like kind of magnetism, like I don't know, people are captivated by you, which is really interesting. It's really interesting because this is always, with aspects like this, you'll always have that kind of vibe about you, whether it's true or not. Some personalities are truly like really powerful and cunning or whatever, and so this is really fitting, and others might not be. So with yours, it kind of may or may not fit. Um, I think it's interesting. So you do have, I think you do have a lot of power in all that kind of information that you gather, or it's not just like logical information, but even everything you gather from all the attitudes and vibes that you pick up off from other people. I think there is a lot of power in all that everything that you integrate. Um, there is a lot of power there. So I'm not trying to judge whether it's true or not. I think it is accurate, but the point is that people sense some kind of power or like majesty with you, or some kind of um, I don't know. They're kind of captivated by you. They're interested. Okay. Um, okay. I've covered most of what I want to talk about. I haven't covered yet the let's see here. Okay, so jumping back to the nodes again, probably one more time. It's interesting because typically when you have a luminary close to the south node, it indicates that that position is very challenged. Now, especially you having north node in the seventh house and south node near the sun, this would indicate that you sometimes doubt yourself, and it's almost like the other person. How do I put this? Like anytime you see someone or relate to someone, it's almost like they're kind of put on a pedestal, or they're like elevated above you from your perspective. Like you see, like for instance, if somebody else does something, you are more likely to think highly of it than if you do something. If hopefully that makes sense. Um, it's almost like you're more naturally open to, other people doing things. You're more critical of yourself, if that makes sense, and more accepting of other people. I think that's the best way I can put it here. So this is very difficult. It shows that you're, very open to people. You're really great for listening to other people, understanding other people. But it can be difficult because it also means that you're hard on yourself. So that's something that you can kind of, I don't know, maybe just be aware of. It's very difficult. I have a placement similar to that, so I definitely know how that goes. Um, let's see here. But what's interesting is you have Moon near the North Node, so this would show that um, you you naturally are kind of gifted, or like deep down emotionally, you're kind of always in the right place at the right time. There's something kind of lucky there, or and it's something natural that you're kind of born with. Like you have this really functional mental capacity and this emotional groundedness that's really beneficial or almost like privileged in a way. But it's focused around other people. Having Moon in the seventh house, you're always like I think okay, so having having Moon in the seventh house, it's like you need to be around other people for your own identity. If you're completely isolated and alone, it's almost like you don't exist. You have to have some kind of other person to kind of bounce energy off of, compare and contrast from yourself, to relate to be kind of healthy and happy, I think. And that's common with, having placements in the seventh house. But especially having your moon there, it's like your whole kind of emotional being depends on it. Um, so, romantic relationships are important to you, which kind of segues me into that. Do you need to cover that here? But also just any relationship, having, close friends. And also, something I'll add is that you do look like an empath. You look like, you soak up everything from your environment, all that information, the vibes and such. So I think it is very important for you to have, close friends or family. And you probably know this already, but maybe this can just be a recognizing it. I'm forgetting the word, but that you would be very sensitive and you can be drained by people. So I think it is important. I think it's very important for you to have really strong bonds with people in your life that you can, um, I don't know, relate to and decompress with. Okay, but talking about more kind of relationship or romance oriented things, I would look to Descendant in Virgo, and then Venus in Aquarius, and Mars in Aries. Now, this is interesting just because it's a blend of three very different energies. This means that what you are attracted to in a more immediate sense isn't always necessarily aligned with what you truly need in a more long term romantic relationship capacity. What I mean by that is, with Venus in Aquarius and then Mars in Aries, you're attracted to people that are more provocative, more edgy, kind of unafraid to be themselves, to be different, to be unusual or, independent, individualistic. Personalities that are, maybe very colorful. Um, and I think a lot of it is intellectual as well. It can be very physical. Aries is more physical, Aquarius is more intellectual. But someone who is not afraid to stand out physically, maybe have a different kind of physical appearance, and with their actions, they act on things in a kind of confident and in a way that's confident and differs from the group, I guess. Um, but also intellectually, someone who has ideas, who's an individual thinker who has maybe unusual opinions. And this kind of leads me to the Virgo Descendant. I think this is the common thread that links all of them. This would show that someone that you're attracted to and that you would work with very well in a long term capacity, romantic wise, they would definitely be an individual thinker, someone very unique. Um, and definitely, yeah, definitely an intellectual. So the most okay, so Venus and Mars more symbolize what you're attracted to. So that's kind of that, um, independent person who's not afraid to be kind of different from everyone else, who's maybe visibly different. Someone more very confident, someone who's be like outspoken and direct, maybe a little bit blunt with things. But what you so you do need all that, and in order for there to be desire. But more specifically, in regard to things that you need in a long-term relationship, would be symbolized by the Virgo Descendant. So this shows that you need someone very intellectual who has foresight, and that kind of bluntness is, I think, a common thread that links Aquarius, Aries, and Virgo. So someone who is unafraid to tell you where they are, and who has maybe kind of blunt observations. Yeah, who's not afraid to tell it like it is. Someone intelligent, someone who thinks for themselves, someone who has maybe unusual or unique opinions on things. That would be very attractive and rewarding for you. Now, the Virgo descendant, being attracted to a Virgo personality, it works pretty well with your chart as well. You have strong Mercury energy, you have Moon in Virgo, so you naturally kind of are many of those things anyway. So you are already analytical, intellectual, and the fact that you have descendant in Virgo, it shows that you also need someone who is intellectual, analytical, intelligent, who knows a lot of information. That's what would be attractive for you, and it works well with your chart. It would be an easy connection as well. And I think also having that emotional groundedness. You are so naturally kind of grounded and earthy, down to earth. You really need a partner that's like that as well. And so this very much could be someone with Virgo placements, like a Virgo Sun or Virgo Moon, like yourself. Virgo Rising would be great. Excuse me. But it could also be other Earth placements as well. Let's see. You don't have any planets in Capricorn or Taurus, but it could be Capricorn or Taurus as well. Those other Earth signs would be a lot of the same things. It just depends. I'd have to really see. I'd have to judge the connection on a case by case basis. But generally speaking, though, I think the most important thing would be um, Virgo or other Earth energy. But I think that mercurial influence is also important. So maybe if it was a different Earth sign like Taurus or Capricorn, I think there'd have to be a strong Mercury placement, or maybe some Gemini mixed in as well, or maybe a Virgo somewhere else in the chart. But Virgo would be the main thing. That analytical, intellectual, groundedness would be what you're attracted to and what you need in a long-term situation romantically. Okay, and I think I've said pretty much the gist of what I've wanted to say. So feel free to give me feedback. Let me know what I got right or if I got anything wrong. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer as well. But thank you for this request, and thanks to anyone else who might be watching. And I will see you guys later. And of course, for more content like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel. You can also email me any type of suggestions or reading requests at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.